Welcome to Small Solutions. Today we're taking a look at the HK USP 9 pistol. Not too long ago, I went through my safe and I was looking at some of my pistols and looking at ones that perhaps I have or haven't done reviews on. And quite frankly, I couldn't believe I have not reviewed the USP 9. I've reviewed the USP 40, USP 45, but not the USP 9. So today we're going to take a look at the USP 9. Now, go back to the 1991 time period was when H&K did a reevaluation of the market share in the U.S. They were losing out to everybody on market share. Beretta, Sig, Glock, Ruger, everybody, because HK had nothing to compete in the normal market. Everything that they had was well over $1,000+ back, in the 90s. So they had nothing really to compete with in the open market. Also, for as far as modern military contracts, the P7 M8 and the VP70, which had been out of production for quite some time, those were all the only HK pistols that were really suitable for military use. The P7 M13 was just overly complicated. It wasn't what you'd call military grade. So they went to look at a new pistol. They put together a list of criteria, and that criteria was referred to as the USP, Universal Self-Loading Pistol. And basically, they were looking at a modern polymer frame pistol, double single action. Because again, at that time, striker fire was still relatively new. Glock was the only one really in the market who was really in full production of striker fire pistols. And there was enough controversy going on at that time where, the business was still looking at being double single. It was only 5 years or so prior to that where the M9 was adopted by the U.S. government, which was double action, single action. So the USP, Universal Self-Loading Pistol. Well, there was also a program that ran consecutive with that during that course of development, which was the U.S. SOCOM Offensive Handgun Individual Weapon Program. This was a program that was put out by SOCOM, which was for a new pistol to replace a series of pistols. It was also not to be a sidearm. It was to be a offensive weapon or a primary weapon, which consisted of a pistol, laser aiming module, and a sound suppressor. So this was also the first weapon that SOCOM had ever worked together on for all branches, whether it would be the Green Berets, SEALs, Delta, throughout that. Everybody fell under that umbrella of SOCOM. And HK jumped on that, and there's only one other company that did, and that was Colt. However, when the requirements were looked at, basically what Colt came up with was a disaster. It was basically a modified 1911 that took the Colt 2000 type rotary barrel, and it was just not what they were looking for. The pistol that they were looking for was one that was going to be precision accurate. It was going to be able to have probably the most stringent standards of all time ever put through it for durability, reliability, and the end result is what you would see here, which is the HK Mark 23 SOCOM pistol. Now, what we see here is very similar to what that of the USP is in many ways, except the USP was basically designed around the 40 S&W cartridge. Going back to that time around 1993-94 was when the introduction of the 40 S&W cartridge came out. At that time, there were only two pistols that were ever developed that were developed around the 40 S&W cartridge, and that was the SIG P229 and the soon-to-be USP 40. The original guns that came out were put for sale to the market were the Glock 22, which was a modified 9mm. It was a modified Glock 17, and the Smith & Wesson 4006, which is a modified model of the 59 series, which is a 9mm. So these pistols were scaled up. Well, the USP and the P229 were designed specifically for, and then they would be scaled down to the 9mm. There's a lot of things that made this weapon special, and we're going to take that apart in the 9mm in a second. But when we look at this, we're going to see a polymer frame. We're going to see a paddle-style magazine. Now, the Mark 23 uses a steel magazine, where the USPs use a polymer magazine. Accessory rail in the front. But again, this pistol here was a good starting point. This pistol did everything that it was supposed to for SOCOM and then some. It was exceptional. This pistol failed not because of anything that it was, but it was because of its concept. Once the guys at Crane got it, the SEALs got it and whatnot, they found out that this thing was just too big. This was not what you refer to as a sidearm, and they had a hard time wrapping themselves around the fact that this was a primary weapon. They're looking at primary weapons as being M4s, or at that time even potentially MP5s and guns of that sort. So it sat in the armories because it was just too damn big. Later on down the road, this would be replaced with some COTS versions or commercial off-the-shelf versions of the USP 45 or the HK 45. So we're going to go from that to the USP 40. This particular USP 40 is a variant one. There were 9 different variants that were made, and they all had to do with the use of the safety. For instance, these are what was referred to as a variant 1. Variant 1 would mean you would have a decock as well as a manual safety. You could also carry it cocked and locked if you so chose. So a variant 1 would be for a right-handed shooter. This would be swapped over for on the variant 2 for the left hand. Then you would have a variant 3, which would be a decock only for a right-handed shooter. Then 4 would be decock only for a left-hand shooter. And of course, then the other models would go, to double action only, left, right, with or without safety. And then you would also go to basically a LEM model that would be later on down the road. But basically, you could just, with one pistol, by dropping out and adding a new a safety mechanism, you'd be able to modify the mode of fire. Again, designed specifically for the 40SW cartridge. The only thing that's been added to this is the threaded barrel. When I'd done the review on the USP 40, HK was kind enough to send me a threaded barrel, so I'll be able to show you how this thing will work suppressed, because these pistols were designed to work suppressed. But as this one came, it came with a standard barrel. So I think we're going to go look at the USP 9 to show you all the details. But basically what the USP 9 is this same gun here, a 9mm barrel, 9mm breech face, and they removed some of the weight on it that was required. Because this being a heavier cartridge, they required more weight on the slide to balance the system. Material was removed from the 9mm to make that slide lighter. So this particular USP 9, again, the barrel has been replaced. This is the original barrel, standard barrel. And this has a threaded barrel, which we were able to do some suppressed shooting this time. This particular pistol was bought by me in 1994 or 1995. In 1994, when this pistol first came out, I bought one of the first runs that came into the United States. The customers were very upset when the pistol came out. It came out with a standard rifle cut versus a polygon barrel. So H&K got a lot of flack from that, so they ended up changing out the barrels to the new polygon rifling, which I actually traded my original USP 9 the following year. As soon as one came in with the polygon rifling, I changed it out for that, and that's this one. So again, this one's 1995, so this would be the second year of production of this pistol. So let's take a look and see what we got here. Now, this particular one is the variant 1. So we have a cock pistol. We can go up. Now we have 1911. We go down. We have ready to fire. And we can decock, safety off like a revolver, or we can engage the safety, whichever you so chose. And I chose the variant 1 just because at the time I was actually shooting some IPSC, and I did use this on a couple occasions with that. Didn't work out very well for that, but that's not neither here nor there. One of the really neat things about this was the paddle they had for the magazine release. It can be used either right or left-handed. This had a 9mm magazine, 15-shot capacity, and it had an oversized magazine well. It had a very nice stippling on the sides, oversized trigger guard, so you'd be able to use a gloved hand without a problem. So let's talk a little bit about the design intent of this. Now, again, this was made specifically for the U.S. market, USP Universal Self-Loading Pistol. Also, when it was designed, it was supposed to compete at the same price point as the Beretta, Glock, and SIG. So you're looking at between, at that time, probably $450 to around $700 in that area, looking to range from, say, Glock, Beretta to SIG being on the higher end. This did compete at that time around $799. But unlike, like most HK prices, they tended to go up. Now these are to the point now here in 2024, they are significantly higher. You're looking at $1,100 MSRP for this now, where you can buy a Glock for $500. You can buy a Beretta for around, $650 in that area. And again, SIGs you're going to be looking up, towards $850. But now, once again, this pistol is probably one of the most expensive on the market. So that's one area where HK did fail, was trying to make one that was competitive for the U.S. market. The finish that was on here was a good hostile environment finish, a very durable finish. Same recoil-operated Browning linkless mechanism. You had adjustable rear sights, removable. You could put on night sights, or you could have the standard white sights that came with it. When you take a look at the inside, disassembly is very easy. You pull back to a notch which lined up with your slide stop or slide release. Push that out. That would drop right out. And now the slide would come right off. You would lift up on your recoil mechanism, pop out your barrel. Now, looking at the slide here, this is where you can really see the difference between the USP 9 and 40. All this is machined out on the USP 9 to decrease the weight, so this would be able to cycle properly with 9mm. So, of course, you had a 9mm breech face, and, of course, you had the most important safety you could possibly have is your frame pin safety right here. Now, this is really where the magic is on this pistol, and this only exists with the Mark 23, USP 9, 40, and 45 full size. This is their patented recoil reduction mechanism. There are two springs. You have the main spring on the outside here, which is the longer one. Then you have a smaller, stronger spring in here with a pin. Basically what this does is when it sits in the pistol, the slide will come back, depressing the heavier spring, and then once the slide hits the stop right here for the heavier spring, it engages this much heavier recoil spring. What that does is it absorbs that shock. So it absorbs a significant amount of shock before the slide even hits the frame. What that does is this thing makes it probably one of the most durable 9mm pistols in the world. Again, we're just talking about 9mm at this time. This was designed around the heavier recoiling of the 40 S&W, but when it was applied to the 9mm, this is probably one of the few pistols that was ever made that could handle a steady diet of plus B and plus B plus ammunition. Because again, before you even had the recoil of the slide striking the frame, it hits two recoil springs, and that one was significantly heavier. This was designed specifically around the Mark 23 program to decrease the recoil and the longevity of the and to increase the longevity of the slide and frame with the use of the 45 caliber plus P ammunition. Part of the offensive handgun weapon system program was the pistol was supposed to be able to use a steady diet of plus P 45 ammunition. That same ammunition would crack a 1911 frame in a heartbeat with relatively limited use. But to make a military pistol that was designed around having to do a steady diet of that, this was the answer. And this was brought down to the 40. Then it was brought down to the 9mm. Then, of course, when the USP 45 was released about in 1996, I believe that was, it was part of that as well. But then, unfortunately, once they switched to the more compact versions, this design went away, and they went to more of a sliding polymer, a large polymer buffer that they claimed and did the same thing. But again, this was one of the most durable aspects of it. Looking at your frame, you have your connector, you have your frame pin safety latch, and again, this is your safety mechanism right in here, which permitted you to switch from variants from 1 to 9. So you had all that durability. So you had all that. With one pistol, you'd have all that ability to switch from variants. Now, law enforcement with this pistol, it wasn't very successful, and it was only because of the price point. Again, H&K's crux with all of their equipment was price point. Most municipalities don't have the money to be able to purchase these pistols. They were just too expensive. HK didn't offer the same type of trade-in processes either. I can go back and, with my experience working with the Rochester Police Department back in around the 2000. Oh, this would probably be the 2006 time period, around that time. They're looking for a replacement for their 9mm Beretta Centurions and Beretta Compacts, and the new firearms training unit heads were all interested in having a 45 pistol. So at that time, the RPD SWAT team was using the HK 45 USP, and it was loved. They liked the accuracy, durability, liked everything about it. So this particular firearms training unit sergeant put up the chain of command. They wanted to adopt the USP 45 for their standard duty pistol. They got the quotes. It was mouth-dropping. And HK was not taking, nor was the distributor taking in the trade-ins of the pistols. And also RPD they unfortunately had a policy that they would not trade in pistols. All their pistols had to be destroyed. They didn't want them showing up on another crime scene. So anything they would have to buy would be buying from scratch. So they ended up getting a hold of one of the local distributors, and Beretta was willing to give them a excellent deal, trade in leather and all that kind of stuff, and they ended up with a Beretta Cougar 45, which was based more on the rotating barrel. So it was not what they wanted. So again, that was just more of an example of that. However, our Monroe County Sheriffs down there, they did adopt the USP 40 as a pistol to replace their 9mm. That was the only agency in that entire area who basically had the money to be able to purchase an HK pistol. So the pistols were very well liked. They were ideal law enforcement pistols, but cost prohibitive. So if you look at the overall testing of these pistols throughout their history, again, the testing that the USP 40 went through was unprecedented. when it came to market. There was no question that it was the most durable and reliable 40 S&W pistol that had come out at that time. Even by today's standards, I think that it still is probably one of the best that there is. They've switched it up a little bit with some different changes over the years. They come up with the VP9, and they've come up with some other models. However, this model is still in production. It hasn't really evolved. It still has their proprietary rail on the front here instead of going with the 1913 rail. The USPs are still not optics ready, but they're still offered in the USP full size and compacts 9, 40, and 45. So I think we're going to do is take this to the range, and we're going to see how it shoots.
All right.
The suppressor that we used was the GSL Stealth 9mm pistol, 9mm suppressor. Now, this particular suppressor I'm quite fond of. The gentleman who designed this, his name was Greg Latka. And Greg Latka was a former guy who worked over at Gemtech. He went out on his own. He was responsible for many of the designs. GSL is not one that's really, really well known because, again, it's a newer company. My interest in them came through LMT, actually. The LMT's Estonia contract, both the 5.56 and the 7.62 rifle both utilized a GSL multi-cal can, and that was the first time I looked at it. So after looking at that, I was very, very impressed. I contacted them about wanting to take a look at some of their other ones, and I have to say I was very, very impressed with it. So those of you guys who are looking at cans, I would definitely take a look at GSL for a 9mm can. It's very lightweight. It does an excellent job. The pistol, you're looking at an overall length of 7.68 inches. Again, what you'd expect from a duty style pistol, and with a barrel length of 4.25 inches, and you're looking at a weight of 27 ounces. So basically what you're looking at here, I think, is an excellent, everything you want. It's a combat pistol. In fact, this particular is used by the German Bundeswehr as the P8 and P8A1. The only difference between the USP9 versus the P8 and P8A1 is basically the way the safety is. The safety is reversed. So it's basically upside down, if you would. Instead of going down and it staying down for as far as your safety is concerned, it would stay down for safe and you lift up for the decock. So it was basically only a difference in the way the safety worked. With the exception of that, the pistol is the exact same. Now, overall, this has seen use throughout the world. It's been used by more than 24 countries, mostly in the 9mm variants, but you have seen other places where it's been used in 45 for tactical purposes, for suppressed purposes. So it has definitely seen use, and again, still to this day, the German Bundeswehr is their weapon of choice. So there are some timeless classics, and I believe the USP series is one of them. They still stay on HK's in their catalog. They're still being produced. They're still in demand. I certainly would like to see them do some updating to it. I certainly would like to see them go with a 1913 rail instead of this proprietary rail, because unfortunately you have to get a proprietary mount to be able to mount a flashlight on here. This one's particularly is by Streamlight. So if you do have one of these and you do want to get a flashlight, Streamlight's one who makes a complete mount and a flashlight for the USP. But it would be nice to see them go with more of a 1913 rail. And there's a lot of interest in optics ready right now. This is certainly could be well made to be optics ready. So you could certainly update it still some more. But overall, I think you have an excellent pistol here. Durability, reliability. It's got everything that you would want. And it's met some of the most stringent combat tests in the face of the earth with the Germans. And it's going to be around for quite a while longer. Now, the ammunition that we had used was provided by Federated Ammunition. Now, Federated Ammunition is ammunition manufactured here in the United States in Idaho. Everything is manufactured with the exception of the primers and the propellant in that facility. So the bullets and the cartridge cases are drawn there. The ammunition that they're making in 9mm is a 124 grain NATO cartridge. It's 124 grain, about 1185 foot a second. Again, full metal jacket. And then I did some testing with the chronograph, and this does meet the NATO standards. Again, NATO standards is plus P for as far as SAMI is concerned. So it is a higher pressure round that's used by the military. Very reasonably priced. If you're looking for some good 9mm ammunition, I would suggest you go take a look at these guys. Again, good American-made ammunition. We also have to thank our friends over at Challenge Targets for providing the target that we shot at. Again, the one time I shoot at paper is when I want to get targets. Again, a lot of times with pistols, everybody likes to see targets, but the reality is can you hit the target? So I tend to much more enjoy shooting the steel targets because you get that immediate feedback. We do have a code SAS if you're interested in getting some of those targets. We have 10% off of all steel targets, so check those guys out. I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, please click like, please subscribe, and even better, share.